To say that Chris Chibnall killed Doctor Who is frankly giving him far too much credit. His particular bland, forgettable, by-the-numbers iteration of the programme is hardly worthy of such sensationalism. Steven Moffat, by contrast, is an ambitious writer, and when those ambitions backfire, they do so spectacularly. Indeed, the extent to which he managed to catastrophically derail the show over his 6 series as showrunner is nothing if not remarkable. For that reason, while I won't go on record as saying Moffat is an all-round worse writer than Chibnall, the metaphor of murdering a franchise fits him far more appropriately. If we must use sensational figurative comparisons, I still think Dimmy best encapsulates the Moffat era.
It's Doctor Who! It's not this shambling corpse wearing references to itself constantly over its tattered remains.
Let's talk about fan service. When used sparingly and unintrusively, it can be rewarding for long-time viewers, but when overdone it can easily come across as desperate, and your scripts had better be up to scratch, otherwise you're just coasting on nostalgia, which is both insulting to the viewer and the show's heritage. One thing I can admire about Series 11 is its confidence to stand on its own, with no returning villains and only the occasional throwaway callback to previous episodes. It may have been a failure, but at least it failed on its own merits, not propped up by Moffat's endless stream of fan-wankery. Let's not forget that in Tom Baker's 7 seasons, often considered the most iconic period of Doctor Who history, he only encountered the Daleks twice on screen. Every time Moffat wheels out the old Daleks or starts quoting classic dialogue which doesn't make any sense in context, I'm just reminded of better stories I could be watching instead. However, it's not merely the sheer amount of fan service on display that is the problem, rather it is the way in which it is handled. Okay, I've been putting this off as long as I can. We need to talk about Clara Oswald. Clara is a companion who had precious little character to begin with, notoriously being introduced as a plot device to drive the second half of Series 7, with another one of Moffat's pretentious cryptic riddles. We'll get onto those more in a moment. This was also around the time when Moffat first started cranking up the fan service to 11 as the 50th anniversary drew near. Alongside being a vehicle for the plot, Clara now became an empty receptacle for Moffat's nostalgia. Out of nowhere, and with no prior build-up, she becomes a teacher at Coal Hill School, just because Moffat needed that reference in there. In name of the Doctor, Clara jumps into the Doctor's time stream, and now we are supposed to believe that in all our favourite classic stories, Clara is somewhere just off-screen saving the Doctor's life. Not to mention that she influenced the first Doctor's decision to steal the TARDIS in the first place. Whether any companion should play this much of a role in the show's mythology is questionable to begin with, but Clara? I mean, who even likes Clara? Other than Jenna Coleman being easy on the eyes, I've heard very little in the way of praise for her character. For a start, there is nothing whatsoever to distinguish her from the rest of Moffat's mouthy, sassy superwomen, full of witty quips who can do whatever the plot requires at any given moment. Her lack of any depth or consistency actually reached levels of self-parody when the trailer for Death in Heaven opens with her declaring that Clara Oswald has never existed, and it says a lot how many people expected that to be a genuine plot twist. Ultimately, Clara serves as nothing more than an empty vessel through which Moffat can stamp his mark all over the mythology of Doctor Who, and therein lies the problem. If the first rule of fan service is don't overdo it, then the second rule is it must come from a place of love for the material it is paying homage to. In Moffat's case, 9 times out of 10 it comes from a love for his ego, and even when that isn't the case, it still disrespects the original material. Case in point, Twice Upon a Time, the story that was written to secure a Christmas slot that Chibnall ultimately didn't even use. Yeah, can we just forget this episode ever happened, please? Sure, using the show's history to promote an acceptance of change sounds noble in essence, but honestly, did no one see that making the first Doctor out to be some kind of sexist dinosaur is liable to piss off the very audience who would be interested in a story like this? Like, that is just something you don't do. Getting back to Moffat's ego, dear god his scripts are dripping in it. Between the constantly overhyped mystery boxers that always turn out to be underwhelming and the never-ending barrage of pretentious riddles and wordplay, you can practically see Moffat pointing from the corner of the screen going, "Oh, I bet you didn't see that coming, did you? Oh, aren't I clever?" No. No, you're really not. And we haven't even started on the way that Moffat writes dialogue. Good men don't need rules. Now is not the day to find out why I have so many. Could you trust someone who looked at you out of your own eyes? Truth is singular. Lies are words, words, words. What does any of it mean? Moffat's writing is absolutely drowning in the kind of pseudo-intellectual gibberish that only brainless people think is actually clever. Nobody in real life talks like this, and when you can see through it, it's just really annoying. But it's all part of Moffat's vision of unstoppable super geniuses fighting other equally unstoppable super geniuses. He's like a very good salesman convincing you over and over again that there is some kind of epic grand scheme at the end of it all, and if you keep raising your investment it will eventually be worth your money. But it's all hot air. See, the problem is, if all you know how to do is keep raising the stakes over and over again, you eventually reach the point where a character's actions become meaningless because there are no consequences. If Sherlock can jump off a building and survive with no satisfactory explanation, then why should we care when he is in danger? Same goes for the Doctor being this all-powerful figure who can make whole armies turn and run away at the click of his fingers, which incidentally is about as far away from the show's origins as you can get. It's hard to imagine the Time Lords having the power to contain this Doctor on Earth, and there's only so many times you can see Rory get killed before it loses all impact. This trend reaches its lowest point in Day of the Doctor, when the Doctor is able to retcon the destruction of Gallifrey, you know, that impossible decision he had to make which forms the emotional backbone of much of the revived series, because he saw some children and Clara didn't like it. Surprise, surprise. Stu Bagfull has already gone into depth about why this is a terrible idea.
Yes, those children should have died, because they already did die. Okay, we as fans like to pretend that Moffat respects Doctor Who's legacy and really gets it, but this is just a massive slap in the face to literally everything that's happened so far in New Who. It's seriously equivalent to, and then the Doctor woke up and it was all a dream.
I suppose you can at least say this is an anniversary special, not just a throwaway episode, and bringing back every previous incarnation of the Doctor to help save Gallifrey makes the retcon feel more earned as the big deal that it is. But really, if an event with so much emotional weight can just be undone like that, how does Moffat seriously expect something like Clara's death to have any impact? You already know he can just go back in time and save her 2 episodes later, and she'll even get her own companion and a TARDIS with original sound effects to go and have her own adventures in. Yeah, remember what I said about your scripts needing to be up to scratch with fan service? Hellbent is the perfect example, with scenes like this coming across as the ultimate middle finger to the show's history and the viewer's intelligence. Now, for everything I've just said, Steven Moffat does have his strengths. He's a great comedic and conceptual writer, and these skills are best exemplified when he is held on a leash, writing standalone stories with script editors to keep him in check. While Blink is overrated, its reputation is not unfounded. Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead is a much better story when viewed in isolation, before Everybody Lives and the Doctor being an all-powerful super deity became weekly themes, and River Song became the template for every female character thereafter. However, it is the gradual erosion of any stakes that was the final nail in the coffin for the Moffat era of Doctor Who. While Series 10 is generally an improvement, by this stage my investment was broken beyond repair. If companions who die can just be brought back on a whim, if the ending of the Time War can just be undone, why does anything even matter? I can't tell you what a relief it was in The Woman Who Fell to Earth, seeing Grace die, and knowing that she's not going to spring back to life in the next episode, that this will have lasting consequences, that the Doctor is vulnerable and can't just raise an army or destroy a whole cyber fleet at the drop of a hat. How about this for a twist? Chris Chibnall saved Doctor Who, not by being a good writer, he isn't, but by simply not being Moffat. Still, there's time for him to screw it up in his own unique way yet. Let's hope Series 12 is an improvement. I'm Midnight and I just lost my train of thought.